Hello everyone, I'm here with another tutorial and I want to elaborate a little bit more on trimming. That's one of the questions a viewer asked, and I answer in another video, but I want to take this video and elaborate a little bit more on why trimming is extremely difficult to spot. But there are ways to spot a bad jobs. Okay, skillful scammers out there can come up with ways that I may not be able to spot. CGC graders may have methods that I'm not aware of, but for me, I can spot bad cut jobs. Okay, so for example, let's review on how some books are made. As mentioned before, square bound books are produced differently than the typical staple books. The way square bound books are put together, all the pages are assembled and then they are cut. They're stapled first. Okay, so if you look at the typical square bound books, you will see the staple right here and right there. And so as the page is assembled and stapled, the book is then cut on all three sides. And then the cover is glued onto the books. So the cover is cut at a different time. For that reason, if you look at the typical square bound book, you can see how the edges are perfectly straight. Okay, there's no sign of any miscut. As you can see, all three sides are perfectly square. And often you see on square bound books that they have overhangs on the top edge, very often overhang on the right edge, so that it gives you the understanding that the books are the interior are cut at a different time than the exterior. Otherwise you will have the cover and the interior flush together. Okay, so that's how a typical square bound book is produced and cut. If you see a square bound book where everything is flush at all the edges, that's a slight pause for concern. I'm not saying that that's anything wrong with it, but if I buy a square bound books where I don't see any kind of overhang in at least one or two of the edges, I'm always slightly concerned because from my experience of owning a lot of square bound books, they always have some kind of overhangs. Okay, now we're looking at the typical Silver Age books, and here is where things are done very differently. What I will do also for this video is I will put a link to a few websites, at least one that I think people will enjoy watching. There's a video of how comic book was produced in the 70s. I think you will find it entertaining, at least some of you will. But the way the typical staple books are produced, the roll of paper are printed on all both sides of the page. So the typical comic books, you will see page 1 print right here, page 2 print on the other side, and then page 16 and 17 on this side. So the whole page are all all 4 pages are printed. They use it that way. So imagine the book is assembled this way, where you have all the pages lined up and cut. Okay, so as the books and all the pages are assembled, they cut it, okay, on 2 sides or 4 sides, depending on how they produce the page. But then at the stapling process, in order to staple it, they will fold it and staple it. And if you look at the typical Silver Age and Bronze Age and even Golden Age, you will see that because of this process of cutting and then folding, the law of physics come in, and you will see that there's no way the right edge of the book will line up. Okay, as you can see, if you look at your typical Silver Age, Bronze Age books, you will see that the right edge of the book have a slight V shape, or they are just not lined up perfectly because, like I said, the quality control process back then was not that good. And so if all the page are not lined up and perfectly lined up like this, when you fold it and cut it and staple it, there's going to be some kind of misalignment on this side of the book. So it's very common to see comic books, Bronze Age, Silver Age, that have the edges that are not even and have the V shape. So by doing so, for me, one of the warning sign is if I see a book, a Silver Age books or Bronze books, where the right edge doesn't have this kind of imperfection, and if the right edge of a staple book look like this, I am concerned, very concerned, because there's a high chances that somebody decided that a book may have maybe a crease right here, a little corner crease right here and there, and they decide to just put this book through a cutter and just slice it, okay, to cut away the bad part. But you know, like I said, I think skillful scammers have come up with more ways now to trim book that make that kind of detection not as easy. Sure, if you find a book that was trim cut in the 70s or 80s, most likely that is a telltale sign that something could be very wrong. Okay, so be mindful if you pull out an old Silver Age book or Bronze Age book that you bought 20 years ago that have a perfect straight edge with no imperfection on how the page line up. That is a telltale sign that something could be wrong. Okay, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, because depending on how it was made, comic books were produced in multiple plants, in multiple methods. So there is, I definitely don't know all the different methods of how things were put together. So if a book were made, as I mentioned before, where it was folded and then stapled, but then it was cut again, then it could have a perfect straight edge. So, you know, that's why I said it's no guarantee that if you see a straight edge on this side it's trim, depending on how it was produced. If you look at most modern comic books, they all have perfect edges. So it's very obvious that they were produced in a different way. So they were likely cut like this on this side after the book was folded and stapled. So there is no imperfection on the right edge either. It's all lined up perfectly also. So you know, I just want to point out different ways that you should look at books. You know, I can understand that trimming is one of those restoration job that is very difficult to detect, but there are a few ways. You know, if you show me a Silver Age book that have an edge like this, I am very concerned, and for sure I will start measuring it up with other books that I have to see how small, how much smaller it is dimension wise on the right side of the book to other books. And for sure, you know, if I can get my hands on other copies of the same issues, I will take a look, because that's how I try to check my Silver Age books or Bronze Age books, is to see if there's a potential that they are trim. Anyhow, I hope the video shed some more light into the topic. Thanks for watching.